We are now live.
Thank you so much. We'll just be starting in the next 60 seconds. Thank you so much. All the people who have joined us on YouTube, if you want to interact with any of our guests today, any of the teen MPs, you can put your questions and your comments in the comment section, and our team will send them to us, and we'll try to interact with you during this whole call. So thank you so much for joining in, everyone on the YouTube channel as well. We'll be starting just in a couple of moments. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today at the 6th Parliamentary session of the World Teen Parliament. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, our guests, for taking out the time today to talk and interact with our teen MPs and influencers who are trying to influence policies globally. And let's see, can they really do it within the 1 year that they'll be with us, working on different ideas and issues that they bring up from their own ecosystems that they look around them. Before we start this parliamentary session, in the month of January in 2022, something amazing happened. Nearly 72,000 teenagers registered to become a member of parliament of the world's first exclusive parliament of teenagers, which is the World Teen Parliament. Out of these 72,000 teenagers, the top 100 teenagers who secured a total of 235,610 votes finally became the members of parliament of this teen parliament. These 100 MPs since January are working on different issues that they think are important and must be addressed or worked upon. The idea behind the teen parliament is pretty simple. Let's try to give these unstoppable, unfiltered, and absolutely non-prejudiced minds some space to think on solutions that could change the world. तो नमस्कार, आप सभी का स्वागत है विश्व किशोर संसद के छठे संसदीय सत्र में। हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं हमारे 100 मेंबर्स ऑफ पार्लियामेंट या सांसद, जो पिछले 6 महीनों से कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि वो अपने अपने आइडियाज के साथ दुनिया को किसी न किसी तरह सुधार सकें या कोई अच्छा बदलाव लेके आ सकें। आज हमारे साथ 2 बहुत ही शानदार गेस्ट हैं जो कि इन बच्चों से बातचीत करेंगे, इनके सवालों का जवाब देंगे और अपना एक्सपीरियंस इन सबके साथ शेयर करेंगे। आप सभी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कि आप इस वीकेंड पर हम लोगों के साथ हैं, इस शाम को इस छठे संसदीय सत्र में विश्व किशोर संसद के। Thank you so much once again for joining in. Let me now invite the first speaker for today to initiate this parliamentary session and share some piece of advice, some piece of experience that could enrich these teenagers to further work on improving the world around them. Let me give an introduction to this amazing guest that we have today with us. That's Mr. Shri K C Ramamurthy. He's the member of parliament of the Rajya Sabha, or the upper house in the Indian parliament. He's the chairman of committee of papers laid on the table, member of the General Purpose Committee, Committee on Public Undertakings, Department-related Parliamentary Standing Committee on Education, Women, Children, Youth and Sports, Consultative Committee for the Ministry of Home Affairs and Council member of Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He is also the chairman of CMR Group of Institutions and CMR University, Bangalore. Shri K C Ramamurthy, born on 12/6/1952 in Bangalore, holds an MA degree in economics from Bangalore University and MA in Political Science from Mysore University. Shri K C Ramamurthy, a distinguished police officer, took voluntary retirement from IPS while he was working in the rank of Inspector General of Police. In recognition of his distinguished service, he was awarded President's Meritorious Medal of the Outstanding Service in Police Department in the year 2001. He was also awarded Indira Gandhi Priyadarshini Award in 2001 and Kempe Gowda Award in 2011 and many other awards from various religious, cultural, and sports organizations. We thank you so much, sir, for taking out the time and being here with us this evening to share your experience and your ideas with our teen MPs. A very warm welcome, sir. Over to you to initiate the 6th Parliamentary session of the World Teen Parliament.
Mr. Daksh Gaur, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, all of you are here to understand the role, responsibility, and working of the parliamentary system and give innovative solutions to not only local but also global problems to leaders and provoke them to work on those ideas for creating a better tomorrow. By being part of this very important program, you will be able to look at the issue faced by the common people and suggest valuable inputs. I'm very happy to be a part of this program where it empowers teens like you in developing future skills, problem-solving capabilities, policy-making ideas, and contribute in decision-making and empower the nation and society with inclusive technology. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, all of you are, I'm sure, aware that our constitution provides for a parliamentary form of government, which is federal in structure with certain unitary features. While the president is considered the constitutional head of the executive, he also functions as the nominal head of parliament, which consists of the president and two houses. All of you know that the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. We must note that there is a widespread lack of understanding of our constitutional and political system. There is a distinct undercurrent of mistrust and lack of confidence in the system, especially among the young adults. But we must remember that these systems have endured centuries of evolution and their continued existence. And of course, the inherent stability needs to be noted as being indicative of the system's claim to credibility. It is also true that the functions of the state are no longer as before. As opposed to the police state of bygone era, we have adopted the notion of a welfare state, a state that cares not only for security, but in reality for the wholesome welfare of each individual in society and in ensuring this noble objective that the role of parliament worldwide and in consequence, the role of parliamentarian gains significance. The primary and widely accepted role of an MP, now I have completed 6 years as an MP, is that of a legislator. The MPs are supposed to be debating on various provisions of a number of bills that come up and propose amendments if they wish. Any bill becomes an act, as you are aware, only if it is passed by both houses of the parliament and assented to by the president. In Indian constitutional scheme, the executive, that is the government, is accountable to the legislature. This principle of accountability is realized partly by elected representatives, that is MPs, asking questions to government ministers, including the Prime Minister. System in parliament system are almost similar in most of the parliaments worldwide. The parliament also said, as Mr. Daksh was mentioning, various standing committees, select committees, house committees, whose members are nominated by the chairmen of the respective houses. These committees, comprising of members of different political parties, scrutinize the policies, programs, and bills related to the ministries and propose recommendations and amendments to the same. These committees are often referred to as mini parliament because there will be representatives from all political parties and wide discussion takes place in the committees. Through such questions and debates, an MP can be an active voice of his, not only of his constituency, for the entire country and in particular to his state. As all of you are aware, parliamentarians also play a very important developmental role in her own constituency. He will be in various state level committees and is often consulted in various developmental activities of the state from which he comes from. In addition, every member of parliament is allotted some funds, a small amount of, it's not much from the government every year for initiating developmental works in his or her constituency, depending upon the choice of his initiative. For example, the funds that I got, I concentrated on developing the toilets in girls' schools, the government schools, in giving facilities for the government schools, in building compound walls, in building, a borewell, in giving borewells. Like that, various MPs have the different priorities. The health sector is another priority. Like that, we have the liberty to spend this amount for the welfare of the people of our constituency. However, the central concept that is important to the successful functioning of any parliamentary democracy is information. More so in the modern day and age, people need access to information about the activities of the government. People will not be knowing what exactly happens in the government. Various legislation will be coming. Those legislation will have to reach the common man. They must understand what are these legislations so that they can scrutinize those legislation and hold the government responsible for all actions. This is where a parliamentarian comes full circle by not only carrying the needs and demands of people to the government, but also in carrying back relevant information back to his people to inform, educate, and thereby empower them. Friends, I have just outlined in brief the activities of a member of parliament, the current situation, and I wish all of you all the best. And any questions, if you want to ask me, you're welcome. I'll be able to answer in whatever knowledge that I have in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ramamurthy sir, for the opening address. Let me invite the next speaker for today to also give their opening address, and then we'll go into the questions and the interaction through this parliamentary session. I think it was super enlightening for all the MPs to really learn what an MP does from a sitting member of parliament. It's very different when you try to understand things from people who can teach, but it's superly different and supremely amazing if you're able to get to learn from people who are doing these things. Being a doer and being a teacher are two different roles, but when you learn from a doer, it's a completely different experience. Thank you so much, Ramamurthy sir. Let me invite the next speaker for today to share his experience, his idea about a democracy, and how does a democracy really work together in really keeping a nation prosperous and working well. A very important part of any country is the corporate segment of it, or industry, which keeps the economy strong, which keeps the nation strong. So let me invite somebody who understands that part of the democracy and share his experience with us. A very warm welcome to Mr. Tanmoy Chakrabarty, the Group Government Affairs Officer at TATA Sons Private Limited. He has started this new assignment on April 1st, 2018. His role is to synergize Tata Group company initiatives to central, state, and local governments, and to develop a one Tata approach to the government sector. He is based at the Delhi office of the Tata Sons Private Limited. Tata Sons Private Limited is the group parent company that has over 101 subsidiary Tata companies and is the largest industry group in India, which has been in existence for more than 153 years. Earlier, for 14 years, Tanmoyji was the Vice President and Global Head for Government Industry Solutions Unit at Tata Consultancy Services and was based in New Delhi, India. He built the government business for TCS worldwide from 10th January of 2004 until 31st March 2018. He currently is the chairman of the Infrastructure Subcommittee at FICCI and is the Treasurer and Management Committee member at Public Affairs Forum of India. He did his schooling from La Martiniere for Boys, Calcutta, and holds a bachelor's degree in commerce from St. Xavier's College, Calcutta, and is an MBA from IMM, Calcutta. He has completed an executive development program from the Babson College, Boston, Massachusetts, US, and we are very thankful to him. He has accepted the position of an advisor at the World Teen Parliament. Over to you, Tanmoy sir, for your statements, for your opening statements for this parliamentary session and sharing your experience with our team MPs. A very warm welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Daksh, for this introduction. And it's a pleasure to be on the panel with an esteemed member of parliament of the House of Elders, Mr. Ramamurthy. I've had the privilege of working with several police systems around the country in my days at TCS, so I really do appreciate the kind of thankless work that the Indian Police Service is providing in terms of all the duties and responsibilities that they have to discharge in under very trying circumstances all over the country. If you look at our police to citizen ratio, we probably are amongst the lowest in the world, which means that a very, very stretched force is trying to fulfill its obligations and duties to a very large population. And that in itself brings out a lot of challenges. I have myself seen the kind of endless hours that are put in by our police personnel all over the country and the kind of thankless job that they are rendering to maintain law and order and several other functions. In fact, many of the other functions which have been imposed upon them, which are not in the ordinary jurisdiction of them, but it is really a stretched work that they do for the citizens. So firstly, I want to compliment Blub World for this initiative, and I congratulate each one of you teenagers who have become a member of the World Team Parliament. You have come through a process of scrutiny and selection, and indeed the next generation. We are hoping that many of you amongst you indeed actually choose active politics to be a part of your career and indeed come into the real parliament that we have, which is the temple of democracy, as we call it, for India. And we really encourage many of you to choose politics as a stream where you can actually provide leadership and give national service as a part of your profession, rather than the various other professions that you have the option to choose from. And I really encourage many of you to look at it. If you look at the scenario today in the political leadership, both in the central as well as in the state governments, we always get news from the media that covers most of the sensational aspects of political leadership. But I can tell you, having closely watched Parliament, both the lower and the upper house, there is beyond the noise and beyond the quest for TRP ratings, where news channels sensationalize a lot of what the parliamentarians do. Indeed, there is a lot of serious work that happens, which the parliamentarians execute. In fact, sometimes and more often than not, stretching themselves to work beyond regular hours, going deep into the night to ensure that the agenda for the day is actually fulfilled, in spite of all the disruptions and the disturbances that we normally get to see on our television channels. So if you put apart the television coverage of political leadership in the country, indeed, Parliament is all about dialogue, debate, and decision-making converting into enactment of laws, which then shape the policy and the direction in which the country moves forward, and the ambit of legal jurisdiction under which different aspects of governance are actually defined and followed by the citizens of India. So when you look at when I looked at the theme of this seminar today, the webinar today, where it was basically how can the teenagers get involved in looking at local and global problems and then working on influencing transformation and change, influencing the change of laws. I mean, this was the theme that Daksh kind of set up for this virtual webinar. And if we are to stay within the confines of that subject, I would say that I would encourage all of you to choose any of the sectors that is of interest to you. For some, it may be healthcare. For some, it may be sanitation. For some, it may be drinking water challenges. For some, it may be the population issue. For some, it may be the rural-urban divide. So amongst you, choose the topic that interests you and go into the go and search in Google and look at some of the existing laws and try to read up some of the existing laws governing those certain sectoral areas, and then try to extrapolate some of the practical experience that you have on the ground and see where all are the interventions that are required to make those laws concurrent, to make it relevant in today's context. For example, I read in the police, there is a Delhi police rules, which is governing the Delhi police as an administration. Mr. Ramamurthy would know. In that Delhi police rules, I read that there is a provision for providing a horse cart allowance. Even that exists today. But the horse carts have actually gone way back in the past. So there is a need to completely modernize, and I just took this as an illustrative example, a small one, to be able to tell you that many of our laws have been enacted in the 19th century and are a legacy of the British. And even though the government is really endeavoring to clean up a lot of the old and relevant and irrelevant portions of the different acts and rules, you all can participate in this process by going into each of the laws and then looking at the relevance or the irrelevance of some of the provisions. And that could become a subject of your exercise. And you could actually then submit to either the Lok Sabha speaker or to the Rajya Sabha vice chairman some of your thoughts and your observations. And that could be one definitive way in which how you as a teenager could participate in the process of transformation of laws that we have in the country. We have a lot of laws. We have a lot of laws which are an inheritance from the British. We have also, during the process of 1947, 1952 onwards, enacted a lot of laws in our parliaments. But if you look at the changing and transformative way in which India is today and is going to be tomorrow when you come into the forefront as adults, there indeed is a need for a huge transformation and a cleanup and overhaul of many of the laws and rules that exist today. And one of the ways in which you as teenagers could participate in the process in the mainstream would be to do exactly as I suggested, which is to get deep into each subject of your choice or preference, go into that act, read the act so that A, you become aware of how it is that the act has been formulated, and B, look at it in the context of today as well as the tomorrow, where you are going to be active citizens in the country, and therefore enabled to identify the relevance and the irrelevant portions of that act, and then give the feedback to the policymakers. And they, I'm sure, would appreciate inputs coming from citizens, because that's the way the consultation process happens. In every act that is enacted, there is a parliamentary subcommittee that, there is a complete workflow and a process through which laws are drafted. They come and are tabled to the parliamentary subcommittees. There is consultation process. There is a public consultation and feedback phase of each of the laws. Then there is a refinement of the draft laws, which are then put to Parliament to vote. And once the Parliament agrees and there is a majority, it then converts into act. And then it is ratified by the elder house. And therefore, ultimately, then it becomes enacted as law in the country. So I would say, look at areas that will impact you when you become adults in, let's say, largely I see the audience is Indian, in the context of India. For example, in the post-COVID world, we have challenges that we have to deal with. For example, the challenges of administering healthcare to 1.4 billion people in the country. We have challenges of providing safe drinking water. 76% of disease that is today emanating from India is coming out of people having questionable quality of water. What are some of the things and the interventions that would be required to be able to deal with such problems? We have the problem of rapid urbanization in India. By 2030, 50% of India is going to be living in the urban areas. They're going to move from rural to urban, and we don't have new cities coming up. So that means there's going to be tremendous pressure on the current existing urban setup that we have in the country. How are we as a country going to deal with that? Unless we expand our cities or we plan new cities, how are we going to accommodate this kind of influx that's coming in. I mean, it is manifesting itself in rapid creation of slumification of the urban landscape in India. It is causing disease. It is causing issues like sewage and other challenges that we have, traffic. We have more number of vehicles on the roads than the roads that we have. How are we going to solve some of these problems? You could look at each of these areas of challenges that are going to be encountered by you as you face them today. And you can actually take each one topic of challenge and then start putting your thoughts together as to what could be some of the solutions in the future. For example, can we have an increase of public transportation in our cities to be able to reduce the number of cars that are plying in our cities so that we can decongest the roads and reduce the pollution as well as free up the space constraint that we have of roads by really focusing on improving our public transportation system in the cities. That's one way of thinking as to how to solve that problem. Can we look at rapid de-slumification of our cities to be able to convert urban slums that have been created and move everybody to clean, affordable, low-cost housing so that people can live in proper civic conditions? That could be another area that you can research and come up with solutions. Can we have expansion of limitation of our cities to be able to decongest, because everybody wants to come into the center of the city and there is that much space available in that area? Can we have cities expand jurisdictional municipal limits to be able to then notify and have newer parcels of land and therefore decongest the urban concentration of population that is going on in the country? And again, at random, I'm giving some of these challenges that you are going to face and we are facing today. And those problems are going to become more acute tomorrow unless they are solved by enactment of law, changing the direction of thinking of the government to be able to then head on take some of these challenges, to be able to solve these challenges for the future. Can you bring in some digital education capability in the country to be able to normalize the standard of education that an urban child gets in India, as well as the equal opportunities provided to the rural child in India? That's another challenge that we have, because the urban child is progressing at a certain pace. He has a digital environment, like all of us are connected on a virtual call right now. But this privilege is not available to a large number of rural children. So therefore, the urban-rural divide, the urban-rural digital divide is becoming extremely acute, and it is lengthening the gap between the urban and the rural child. What can we do as the next generation to be able to bridge that gap so that the rural child has equal opportunities with access to low-cost mobile technology, with access to internet available in the rural areas, to be able to then have an equal opportunity to have access to information, to have access to transactional capability on the internet, as much as all of you who are urban children have in the main cities of the country. So these are some of the challenges that are going to be there, and they're going to become more acute. And unless we take them head on and solve these problems, we are going to have not a very good future. And I'm sure that all of us have to work to ensure that the next generation, which is you, live in a much better India than probably what we have experienced, as we have been in the process of building that new India in which you must equally participate. So I think I'll leave it here. I've given you enough food for thought, enough areas where you can think, contribute, make a difference, and come back with your own solutions or your own thought process to be able to collectively work to ensure that you use this tenure that you have of being a world teen parliamentarian to be able to make a difference in the way your generation lives in our country. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Tanmoy sir. Now we'll first be taking the questions for Ramamurthy sir, and then we'll be coming to you. But before we actually go into the questions, there's an amazing question that has come from one of our MPs. She has actually asked that question to Tanmoy ji, but I would actually put that question to both of you. And I would invite Carla Torre-Costa, one of the MPs of the World Teen Parliament, to ask her question. But I would ask her to direct the question to both the guests And I would first want to listen, and we would all want to listen to the answer of Ramamurthy ji. Carla, over to you. You can unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Hello, sir. First, I would like to say that I feel very grateful for having this opportunity and talking to you. And I come from Spain, and my school is Episcopal, and I am in 10th grade. I am an MP of the World Teen Parliament. My question goes for Mr. Tanmoy, and my question is, what would you do if you were in my shoes right now? And by this, I mean, what would you do if at my age, around, I don't know, 15, 16 years, you would be a member of the World Teen Parliament? How would you feel and what would you do? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Carla. We would want to first hear Ramamurthy's response on it, that if he was a teenager again and he was a parliamentarian at the World Teen Parliament, what would he be doing? He's a parliament of the Rajya Sabha. So what does he think on this? Ramamurthy, over to you.
It's a very important issue that you have raised. Basically, when presuming that we are of your age, and what would we think of the parliament and the responsibilities of a parliamentarian? You know, it's very difficult for us to visualize that situation, because that's the age when you are understanding the system step by step. You know, when I say that when you're trying to understand the system, you know, at the age of between 15 and 20, when particularly in Indian conditions, the students are graduating, or some a small percentage maybe even getting a post-graduation program attended to. As you know, I was a teacher for some time, and you know, I'm able to read the aspirations and mind of a lot of youngsters from that time till now. You know, this situation is not a very easy situation. You know, we need youngsters like you, even to that age, to understand the actual problems of the society and see whether our government and our parliament, our parliamentarians are going in the right direction to solve these issues. When you feel as an youngster, as an adult, when you feel that, you know, the parliamentarians are not doing the job, as young parliamentarians yourself now, you must be in a position to raise your voice. As Mr. Tanmoy was rightly mentioning, inform the concerned through various communications, you know, your own MP of the area, your own people's representative of the area, of the problems that you see. You can't just neglect the problems that come across to you. You see and forget, you know, it's not my headache, why should I bother, and all that. That should not be the attitude of youngsters, particularly people like you, the young parliamentarians who are all assembled here. You must be able to respond. You will be able to react. You will be able to see that, you know, you intimate and take corrective action in this regard, and you must ensure that, and towards that all of you need to work. I hope I have, if not fully, partially answered your
yes,
apprehension. Yeah.
Yes, you have answered. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carla.
The next question from Mr. Ramamurthy is from Devansh. Devansh, please unmute yourself.
Yeah. Go to the next question.
Okay, so the next question comes from Palak Khatri. Palak, you can unmute yourself.
Am I audible?
Yeah, Devansh, you are audible. Please carry on.
Yes, sir. So, sir, I am Devansh Agarwal from Delhi Public School, Chandigarh, a 10th grader. So, sir, my question for you is that will it be really beneficial if teenagers interact with the government for the betterment of laws?
Yes, of course. Of course. You know, we take all opportunities to interact with you know, the students who are in your age group. We definitely give attention to all the issues that they project and raise, because that will be very relevant. They would have their own views on so many aspects, and it is the responsibility of the people's representative to clear those apprehensions in the minds of the youngsters. And if the suggestions that come up from youngsters like you are very genuine and are important to the society, we'll have to take it up to a different level and see that some solution is given.
Thank you, Ramamurthy sir. Tanmoy sir, we are taking Ramamurthy sir's questions first, and then we'll be taking your questions from the team MPs. The next question comes from Palak Khatri. Palak, over to you.
Good evening, sir. I'm Palak Khatri from Akron Public School, Delhi, India. It's a pleasure to have a one-on-one interaction with both of you here. My question is to Ramamurthy, sir. So the laws that are currently prevailing in our country that were made by the earlier policymakers of India, they made that laws with a different perspective. The young generation may have a different perspective with those very laws. How should the both correspond with each other? That's my question.
It is not at all difficult, Palak. You have all the avenues to interact with the parliamentarians. Of course, you are based in Delhi again. You're much more nearer to the parliamentarians than anybody else. Your issues and your problems can be very effectively represented, by various methods. Maybe you can write to the MPs of your area. You can write to, as Mr. Tanmoy was suggesting, you can write to the authorities concerned. You can elicit an answer. If you don't get an answer, you can write to the press. The concerns of the youngsters is very, very critical and crucial and very important. They cannot be just neglected. So if you bring it to our notice, notice of the parliamentarians at any level, it will be our responsibility and duty to interact, to understand. If it is a genuine issue, as I mentioned earlier, we need to take it up at a higher level. Bring it up as a question in the parliament. Discuss it in the standing committees, wherever it is possible, the relevant areas. We need to interact and take up a task like yours. It shouldn't be a problem. You contact your local MP. The address will be known in the website. You write to him, see if he replies, responds. If he doesn't reply, respond, send another letter. There will be so many other MPs. You make an opportunity and see that you meet them also. It shouldn't be very difficult, Palak. I think you should be able to do it.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
The next question is from Aditi Srivastav. Aditi Srivastav, over to you.
A very good evening to both the awesome personalities here. This is Aditi Srivastav of grade 10th A of St. M.R. Japulia School, Bansal Campus, Sitapur Road, Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. So I stand as an MP in the Govt Parliament. I have a question for Mr. Ramamurthy K C, sir. So, sir, you have worked under the Rajya Sabha. Hence, you must be aware of the distinctive discussions taking place there, including numerous concerns, solutions, and much more. So I would like to ask you that how do you differentiate or acknowledge an issue and its solution to be worthy of attention and investment, and recognize it as an idea for betterment of the people? Now, once this is defined, what is your first step towards implementing a solution, and what step follows?
Aditi, as I mentioned earlier, there are different avenues open for a parliamentarian to interact. One is, as you mentioned, if legislation is to be implemented, if it comes before us, to look at the legislation, study the legislation, go prepared and take an opportunity to discuss on that legislation, the pros and cons of that legislation on the society. We definitely take an opportunity to discuss on that issue. That is one aspect. When we discuss that issue, we discuss that act or legislation per se with a broad perspective, and we'll try to present our views on that. There may be different views, different parliamentarians will be having different views on any particular topic. That is one way of attending to this. Secondly, and most importantly, what happens, most of the times, we will not get certain issues will not come as a legislation. The parliamentarians put the questions. For example, somebody was asking me about national education policy. We asked the concerned minister as to what exactly is happening for national education policy. Why? What is the stage of implementation? What exactly is the result of that? How the students are taking it? How the teachers are reacting? So we ask these questions, and they're bound to reply in writing to us as to what exactly the government is taking, steps the government is taking. There's another way of extracting information on that. Thirdly, as I mentioned earlier, also through various committees, where if the committees come to know of the issues, we even had, for example, in the education committee, we had 2 students from Gurgaon appear before us and give their perspective on various issues pertaining to education. The change in the syllabus or whatever it is, some issues that are very currently being discussed. We got students to appear before us and discuss with them in the committee, so that we take that feedback. There are all these avenues are always open. You must also keep yourself open to these things, and try and see that you get in touch with the concerned people. As I mentioned to Ms. Khatri, the representatives of your area, the MPs or the MLAs or whoever it is, and through them you can always raise these matters. And we will be very concerned about raising issues which are very relevant. So that we also are keen to see that whatever issues that we raise in the parliament are relevant and important to the society.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. That was awesome.
Ramamurthy sir, I had to actually leave the call early. If you allow us, we'll take some more questions, sir.
2 more questions and I'll take leave. And I think Tanmoy has got a lot of issues to explain to the youngsters, and I will leave the stage to him. And whatever questions are there, you can also send it to me by mail. I'll be ready to answer them also on mail, so that we can give it to the concerned.
Thank you, sir. The next question comes from Preksha. Preksha, you can unmute yourself.
Namaste, sir. I am Preksha Mahesh. I study in class 10, Daftals Foundation for Learning, Bengaluru, Karnataka. My question to you is, all of us have different opinions on which country is very ideal, but which, according to you, which country has the best government, the best governance system?
You're making me speak. Is there any other option? The entire world considers our government as the best government, and our leaders, I'm not going to talk politics here, but in the current scenario, India has a unique position in the entire world polity. We are fortunate that we are in this era and this generation.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
The next question comes from Pragya. Pragya, please unmute yourself.
Good evening, sir. I'm Pragya Jain of class 10th from Little Angels High School, Gwalior. My question to you is, people advocate for reservation for women in the parliament. But sir, I believe that in addition to that, there should also be reserved seats for the youth in these decision-making bodies. So what is your view?
I'm sorry, I didn't get your specific point. Pragya, please, can you kindly repeat? You mentioned about reservations.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, we know that there are reservations. People want reservation for women in the parliament. Yes. But sir, should there not be reservation for the youth as well?
Okay. We have in the Lok Sabha a large number of youngsters who just completed the 21 or 22 years. You have the minimum age of voting. You have the minimum age when you can become member of the parliament. It's not even the women reservation in the parliament has not come into force. But there are a large number of youngsters who have come into the parliament as it is now, who are quite active in the parliamentary system.
Thank you so much, Ramamurthy sir. I think there's just a small little observation that has come into place that UAE and some of the governments are now trying to give youth some specific positions to speak within their parliaments. So we hope that this small little point could also be taken to the parliament through you, where teenagers also could get at least recognition as a stakeholder in policy making, so that their opinions also get considered. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And we hope that you'll keep empowering more teenagers with the course of time and in the future. Thank you so much, sir, for being a part of the 6th Parliamentary
Thank
session.
you, Daksh, and
thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity provided. I'm sorry I won't be able to continue with this because I have another engagement which was fixed at 8:45, and I'll take leave, and Tanmoy should excuse me because I was very eager to listen to all his issues, and so very, very enlightening thoughts that he has given, and I only wish I had more time. Thank you very much, Daksh, and all your team for this very effective and very useful activity that you're undertaking, and empowering so many youngsters with a lot of ideas, and making their aspirations very, very strong. Thank you very much, and all the best.
Very nice meeting you, sir.
Thank you, Tanmoy. All the best.
Pleasure meeting you, sir.
We'll meet sometime in person.
Thank you so much, Ramamurthy. So thank you so much, Tanmoy sir, for your patience. I think we'll again go back to Carla's question to you, that if you were a teenager again and you were a MP at the World Teen Parliament, what would you be doing? Carla, if you could ask your question again to Tanmoy sir.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so I am Carla and I am from Spain. I am 10th grade. And my question is, if you were in my shoes, what would you do if you were 15 or 16 years old and you were given this opportunity? How would you feel? What would you do? And how would you react to these meetings and the monthly tasks and everything? Thank you, sir.
Could you get that? I missed that question from Carla. Could you just repeat it, please?
Yes. If you were in my shoes right now as a member of the World Teen Parliament, how would you feel and what would you do? If you were 15, 16 years old, 17, and you had to make these kind of decisions and attend these kind of meetings, how would you feel and what would you do?
Firstly, Carla Torre Costa, I would be really enjoying myself and celebrating the fact that I am a part of the World Teen Parliament. That's the first feeling of elation I would have, that amongst so many young people, you have been chosen to be a part of this parliament. So you need to rejoice and you need to celebrate that recognition. That's the first thing. The second thing I would do when I would be your age, if I had to wind back my life to when I was 15, is that I would really not while away my time as a teenager in being with friends and, of course, enjoying, relaxing. I would really take this stint as a member of the World Teen Parliament to really increase my exposure to local and global activity around me, which would then prepare me as I enter my next life, which is probably 18 and above, to be differentiated from the many others, to be able to then be recognized and to be therefore be able to get more opportunities to enhance my life in terms of either corporate opportunities or entrepreneurial opportunities or people's representative opportunities, or whichever way. I would really use this period of my life to increase my exposure become more aware of world activities, geopolitical events, economic events, what's happening, what are some of the social and economic challenges of my own community. I would like to get a better understanding of all that, so that when I, let's say, enter college, I would be able to stand apart from many of the others who would come, and that would give me a head start over rest of my friends. So that's what I would be doing. In fact, when I was 15 years old and I was just another teenager, being in high school, I did play a lot of cricket. I did a lot of dramatics. I participated in activities that would help me to improve my communication skills, and all of which helped me to stand apart in my future career post my teenage life. And that's what I would do if I was 15 all over again, like you, Carla.
Thank you, sir, so much for your advice. And I think everyone will take it. Thank you.
Yeah.
The next question comes from Annapurna. Annapurna, please unmute yourself.
Good evening, Honorable President, sir. So my name is Annapurna Krishnawat from class 12, Central Public School, Gopalpura, Udaipur, Rajasthan. I am an influencer of World Teen Parliament. So my question is, so we always used to say that if we work in a group, then we can succeed. But there is a psychological term, social loafing, which says that when we work in a group, then an individual work performance rate reduces. And in India, we have party system. So what is your opinion if the party system change with individualistic system? It will be helpful or not? And if not, please suggest some merits of group or party system.
India is a land of 1.4 billion people, and we are a multi-party democratic system. We've signed off to that form of government as we formulated our constitution, and that is the way we are going to be. We are going to be a dynamic, efficient, vibrant, multi-party democracy. And when you look at that, it is clearly the mandate of the country was, when the fathers of the constitution, the way they envisaged it was always going to be collective leadership. The party system, therefore there would be a structure, there would be an organization, an institutionalized governance, and not an individualized form of governance. You have in several countries, the president of the country is more or less leans towards a dictatorial system of governance, which is where the buck finally stops with one person. Here, it is a much more participative, consultative, collective, and collaborative form of government. And that's the way we will be. My recommendation would be that India is today a very vibrant democracy. You can criticize anybody. Everybody has the freedom of expression. As Mr. Ramamurthy said, that you have your voice to be heard. You have digital tools available to you for you to let the leaders of today know about your voice, about your thoughts, and there is no bar on any of these expressions. In fact, it is always encouraged to learn from the thoughts and ideas of the Indian youth. So my response to you is, India will continue to be a collaborative, collective leadership approach of government in a party system, multi-party democracy. And that is the way in which India has been through many of the challenges that we have seen in the past, whether it was the Indo-China war, the Indo-Pakistan war, whether it was the food crisis, whether it was the foreign exchange crisis, whether it was the COVID crisis, which I think India really worked with so much of resilience and worked well because we worked together as a team. We forgot about our differences of parties. Everybody put their shoulders on the wheel and look at the results that we've got in terms of how we handled the COVID crisis versus the result of many of the other countries who are actually struggling with the COVID crisis even today. So I think we have examples in front of us where teamwork always has given us a better output and a better outcome. and a better result for the people of India.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question comes from Tazkia Wasim Qadri. Tazkia, over to you for your question.
I can see her, she has to unmute.
Thank you so much, sir.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. So my question is, like, with reference to the current profit remark row controversy over the Nupur Sharma and Naveen Jindal's comment, how do you suggest that people show their disagreements and disappointments on such political party members and have their demands for the condemning of these party spokespeople be approved? And having so many protests happening across the country, what is your current take over the controversy?
See, my take is very simple, is that for centuries, India has lived with people of all religions, and the Indianness or the Bhartiyata of the individual is always above all these religious, caste and other divides. It is very unfortunate what has been going on over the last few weeks, and this is not any form of expression of anger or protest that we should look at as Indian citizens. Can I ask you a question? Anybody in this group, would we or have we participated in any of these polarization efforts that are going on? It is only a few fringe elements on all sides who are trying to stoke some of these issues. It is not a part of the daily living life of an average Indian. We are all equal. We have always been equal. We have coexisted together for centuries. We have embraced everybody who has come from outside of India into the country and integrated them in the best possible manner that we have. And everybody who is an Indian is an equal citizen at large. And that's the way we should be. And all of these things should just be isolated. The citizens should shun such behavior on any side. Fringe elements are there in every country. There are people who are out there with an agenda. We are seeing so many shooting incidents happening in the United States of America, where average and common citizens are getting affected. These are fringe elements. These are an exception rather than the rule. As Indians, we have always been together. We will continue to be together. We are one. Bhartiyata is in our DNA. The Indianness in us cannot be taken away by any of these actions on any of these sides. So that's my answer to you. Live your life honorably, your head held high as an Indian citizen, and go and shine as Indians are doing, not only in India, but in all other parts of the world. You hear of so many people who have their roots in India, who have gone all over the world and are excelling in whatever they are doing. That's what we are capable of. That's our capacity and capability. We will progress, move forward to be a nation which is fair to everybody, which is fair and honors every citizen that we have in our country. That's the way we are as India.
Thank you so much, sir.
The next question comes from Vedvani. Vedvani, please unmute yourself for your question.
Thank you. Hello, sir. I'm Vedvani, 15 years old, from grade 10th, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar Vidya Mandir from Pune. I am a MP. It's an honor to be in this discussion with you. So my question to you is, as an environmental activist, I've been part of various movements. So one major thing is negotiations with governments. There are lots of negotiations happening on a local level. So other than courts, what are other ways that you suggest that we can use for such negotiations?
No, I don't necessarily endorse the fact that we have to go to court for everything. We need to have a process of dialogue, and we need to have a process of pushing the agenda of getting environment to be at the forefront of discussions, because it is going to affect the lives of our children of tomorrow. Today, we are inhaling a quality of air which is affecting all our lives. If we don't change that, it is going to get worse for the children of tomorrow, the next generation. As an example, if we don't clean up our rivers today, we are going to be without water, or we are going to be with water which cannot be used for any practical purposes, either drinking or for agriculture in the future. So we have to clean up our rivers. If we don't stop desecrating our forests, nature is going to get back to us in the future. So these are issues which need to be initiated through dialogue. There is a very active NGO community in the country. You may be a participant and participate with them. Several NGOs have very specific agenda and initiatives. Somebody is dealing with climate change. Some NGO is dealing with water crisis. Somebody is dealing with, deforestation. Somebody is dealing with cleaning up of rivers. Depending on the area of environmental change that you would like to prefer to see you participate in, you may get associated with any of these groups and get into a process of consultation, discussion, dialogue, debate, and not necessarily take everything to court. The government is also very open today to dialogue and discussion, and getting the feedback of the citizens to get the reality and the ground level feedback, which is so very important to influence policy change or policy making process, because not everything can be decided in air-conditioned rooms sitting in Delhi. So this is where the youth have an opportunity to contribute, to voice their feelings, to be able to give feedback that this is what is wrong and this requires change, that requires improvement, and you can actually use any of the channels of communication to be able to table those inputs back to the government, not necessarily going to the courts. The court process is long, lengthy, and invariably with very little impact. So I think we should encourage the democratic process, the process of dialogue, discussion, citizen to government leadership. I would encourage those processes to become more active, to be able to bring in change.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you.
The next question is from Shreya Vinod. Shreya Vinod, please unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good evening, sir. I'm Shreya Vinod of grade 12 from Vidyodaya Matriculation Academy, Chennai, Tamil Nadu. And I happen to be an MP of the World Teen Parliament. And it's such an honor to be able to interact with such eminent personalities. So here's my question to you, sir. All the MPs and influencers of the World Teen Parliament are basically school students. And I'm sure most of us have been trying to answer this particular question for ages. I feel that the current Indian education system is primarily based on the one-size-fits-all approach. I am extremely proud of the number of eminent Indian scholars who are creating history globally. But are we truly nurturing the unique talent that every child possesses? And what is your take on this subject, sir? And also, with your knowledge and your profound experience in finding solutions to plethora of problems, do you feel that new laws governing education must be proposed and enforced in order to transform the Indian education system into an all-encompassing system, sir? This is my question, sir.
It's a very good question, and I think a very appropriate one, because, education and the process of education evolution forms the bedrock of the personality of the student, and that helps the student in the future life. And the foundation, if it is stronger, helps the student to progress further in life. And therefore the foundation has to be extremely holistic, extremely relevant in the context of today's world and technological advances that the world is making. And you're absolutely right that one size fits all is not the recipe of success for the education system in our country. So if you notice, the government has been actively thinking about that, and they have formulated a new education policy, a NEP, and you should actually, I encourage you to read the provisions of the new education policy, where they are incorporating tremendous amount of changes to the traditional way in which education has been imparted to our students in the curriculum. There is a widening of the curriculum to look at India much earlier than just the Mughal era and the British era that we have always been taught in our schools. We are a 5,000-year-old, what should I say? The legacy and the heritage of India is over 5,000 years old. And yet the history of India that is taught in the curriculum of our books in schools is not more than 700 to 800 years old. Now, there is an effort being made to look at going back in time, the richness, the stalwarts that India produced, whether it was in science, mathematics, physics, chemistry, we had scholars, all of those, the background is getting into the format of the new curriculum, giving the child a much more opportunity, a better opportunity to understand the heritage and the culture and the background to which he or she belongs, and also to bring in modern technological changes in the curriculum to be able to then prepare the child for a much better opportunity in the future to face the challenges that you're going to face in the 21st and the 22nd century when you become adults in the future. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely, one size fits all is not the answer, and a much more holistic approach to education will thereby bring a much more prepared student or prepared youth to face the challenges of the world as you will face them once you finish your education process.
Exactly. Thank you very much, sir. That was absolutely enlightening. Thank you.
So we had actually asked Tanmoy sir for an hour and it's nearly concluding, but we would ask him if we can take the last one more question, sir.
Sure.
Thank you so much. The last question comes from Shivansh. Shivansh, over to you. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead, Shivansh.
Yes, sir. I'm Shivansh Kumar Raj of Alpana International School. I study in class 12th. I'm an MP in the World Tea Parliament. So my question to you is, keeping in mind RBI's recent decision to increase repo rate by 50 basis points and consistent decrease in private investment in the Indian economy since demonetization, along with serious supply chain breakdowns, how and when can we expect to see India making serious economic growth when there are no buyers for PSUs that are being disinvested in right now? Some say that the government has its priorities wrong by focusing on supply side and neglecting the demand side of the economy, which can be seen in this year's budget where spending on Manrega was cut significantly. My really small question too, that we have seen that our sovereign ratings have been cut by Modi and other organizations that set it up because of the hate environment that is being created in our country. What are your views on that?
See, I think to answer your question first is that I don't think we should have in our minds such a morbid or a gloomy environment about the business atmosphere of India. If you look at our FDI inflow, we've had record FDI inflow during the pandemic to the tune of $87 billion coming into the country, thereby clearly giving the indication that the international funding institutions do have confidence in India's business environment, and therefore the FDI inflow is happening. Your second question was about nobody buying any PSUs. I represent the Tata Group and we bought Air India in the middle of this pandemic. And after it took 69 years for us to get our own airline back, but we did make that commitment, and we are indeed committed to make Air India the glorious airline that it once was when the Tatas used to run it 69 years ago. That is our commitment. The Indian business community are indeed investing in several new initiatives in the country, thereby clearly telling you that there is opportunities for business to grow, employment to expand in new areas, whether it is in semiconductors or chips or very emerging technologies like medical devices, many new areas where India had a very, very high dependency on imports. They are being indigenized under the Make in India Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme. So I want to give all of you a message that you are actually at the beginning of this curve, as India's curve is going to be going only this way, which is the way up post-COVID. And the whole world is looking at India as a very, very resolute and a resilient place to do business. If you look at our ease of doing business rankings, every year the World Bank publishes the report. We have come from a 143 position to a position which is, I think, 62 or 61 in the world. So clearly there is a resolve within the government to also accelerate business, to conduct business, and to get the government to focus on governance and do little of business. So that is the motto of the new government that we have. And clearly, when you look at all the parameters and you compare, you talked about the Moody's downgrade. You should compare the Moody's assessment of other developed economies. We are the fastest growing developing economy in the world. And remember that that's a clear, hard statistic that is there. So these parameters are there for everybody to feel and see. There is a very good business environment coming out. I do agree that some fringe elements do not want India to stabilize and do not want India to prosper. And those elements are going to continue to try to disrupt things. But if you look at the priorities and the focus of the government and the leadership, they are moving forward undaunted, regardless of these disruptions and these distractions. I was recently last week in Uttar Pradesh, where there was a groundbreaking ceremony for 81,000 crores of investments for the 3.0, the third version of groundbreaking ceremony of projects. Uttar Pradesh is rapidly moving towards the target that they've set for themselves, is to themselves become a $1 trillion economy. India has a target to become a $5 trillion economy. So these are facts that I wanted to just present to you. And whilst I accept that there are these minor irritations and disruptions and negative connotations, which sometimes the global media also has a very, very concerted effort to downgrade India. But I can tell you that your generation is going to enjoy a better India than we did in our generation. So look up to that. Look at all the opportunities that New India presents to you, and you are all going to be much, much more successful than all of us were in our generation, and that is going to represent the New India.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tanmoy sir, for taking out the time for this 6th Parliamentary session of the World Teen Parliament. You have been very kind for being on the advisory of the World Teen Parliament. We hope that in the future, you'll keep hand-holding us and helping us in making these teenagers more empowered and giving teens the right kind of representation that they command in all policy making across the globe. Thank you so much once again, all the MPs and influencers, for being here for the 6th Parliamentary session. Thank you so much, Tanmoy sir. And thank you so much, everyone, all the audience.
Thank you for having me, Daksh, and it was indeed a pleasure for me to interact with all your teen members of Parliament and advisors. I wish each one of them the very best, and I wish all of you to be an active participant and a thriving participant in the new India. All the very best. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Namaste.